Hey guys, Shaun Clancy here from Humminbird, and we're just going to, while we're on the river at the moment, going to go through the basic setup and tuning of the SOLIX just to get the most out of it. So if we take a closer look, you can see here we are running our mega imaging on both down and side imaging. We're running high frequency and standard sonar, but we're really not getting awesome detail. We can get a lot better out of his. So one of the things we can do is with a single finger press, we can activate this top screen here. So then we can just go into the menu button, and we can either use the joystick or it's a touch screen, so we can use the touch screen to make adjustments. I prefer to use the buttons and joysticks whenever I can, just to keep the screen nice and clean. So the first thing I want to do is pump the contrast up to about 16. And what you can see instantly is everything's a bit sharper on the screen. So we're getting a lot more definition between the bottom itself and any structure. And it'll also help with fish coming through. The other thing that we can do is just adjust our sensitivity. Now I prefer the sensitivity a little bit lower than what you'd expect. And what that does is just give a good contrast between the sandy bottom in this case and any structure or fish that might be popping up as we go through. So sensitivity, just play with that, but if your contrast is up around 15, 17, depending on the different areas, that's a good setting. So now we'll go to our down imaging. And the color palette on that, either one of these two I think is good too. So number 2 or 3 is a good color palette for side imaging. For down imaging, I like to change the color palette to color palette 11, which is this one. And then what we do settings on this one is we want to go to our contrast and we want to pump that up to 17, 18. And then we also want to really crank up our sensitivity. And what we want to achieve is this two-tone here. So now the more red in any returns from the bottom, from fish or from structure, there'll be more red in those returns. So that's a really good setting for down imaging. And then just a single finger press on there, and all we want to really do is change the sensitivity on this to suit our conditions. Again, we could go up the top and look at all the different color palettes. You can choose whatever you like, whatever your preference is. If you like a blue background, there's some really nice blue background options there, so you can set that up however you like. In the main menu, we can also customize where we want to see our favorites. If we scroll across, you can see there's different favorites here. If we want to move these along, just hold your finger on it, move it along, and push the X button to exit out of there. So there's just some little tricks on initially setting up your SOLIX, just to get the most out of the sonar readings, side imaging, down imaging, and traditional sonar. Okay, we're just going to go through a few more of the SOLIX settings and some of the menus and how you can adjust things. So we'll come in and take a closer look. One thing that we can do is adjust the data that we want on our screen here just by holding the finger down, and then it just gives you all the different options you can do to change your data. So that's one thing I want to show you. Exit out of there. One of the other things is things like your date and time. You got to set that up. So if we go into the main menu, go down to general. Again, we can use the cursor or the screen. We go down to units. This is where we can adjust all our distance, kilometers. You know, we can tick on miles, nautical miles, kilometers. Our distance, so gain navigation wise, temperature, Celsius, Fahrenheit, depth, meters, feet, fathoms. So you can set that however you like. Speed, you can set that. So we go out of there. Date, time format, 12, 24 hour. This is our local time here. So for the east coast of Australia, we're +10. So it's just a matter of scrolling down, and what you're looking for is AEST for east coast of Australia, +10. There it is there, and we've already got that ticked. And you can see at the top of the screen here, daylight savings, you can tick that on or off. So now we've got the correct time in there. One of the other things, there's quite a few features within the power button. So if we push the power button, we've got our backlight adjustment. So for night time, we can turn that down. We've got standby mode. So if you're ever fishing a spot, you might be on spot lock, or you don't need to use your sounder at that point in time, so you want to conserve a bit of power. You can just turn the touchscreen, the standby mode on, and what that does is just drop all the functions down. It dims off the screen, but it doesn't turn it off. When you want to reactivate it, you just simply push the power button and you're up and running again. So you're not sort of wasting time for it to boot back up. So that's a handy one to see. One of the other things you can do is turn the touchscreen off, and that's really if you want to clean your screen. So we just confirm that. If you want to clean your screen, obviously if you clean it with the touchscreen activated, so now it's off, so we can clean the screen and we're not going to mess with settings or get the unit all messed up while we're trying to clean the screen. Then you just, obviously you can't touch that to turn it back on, so it's all just joystick driven. So if we want it to go back in, just push the power button, go down with your toggle with your joystick, and you can just push the joystick in, or you could push the tick button. Either one will reactivate it, and then we're back to full cross touch mode. The other thing we can do is turn sonar pinging on and off, deploy 360 and all those sort of things from here. If we had the Altera turned on, actually I can just turn it on now. That'll also show up within the power button. So it'll just take a couple of seconds to enter the network. iPilot connected. There we can see shaded out there, so now I can just push that. Because it's an Altera, push that, deploy it, and the Altera is now going into the water. So now we have full control. We can trim up and down. We can close that box off. We can hit the thrust and increase our thrust either with the touchscreen, or we can use the plus minus on here. And this little dial acts as our steering. If we come in close and have a look at that, we can see that the dial will steer. So if you're doing a lot of trolling and that sort of stuff, iPilot Link's the ultimate setup. You can see we've also got our spot lock button here, autopilot, which just helps you maintain a direction. So whichever way the motor's pointing, it's going to maintain that direction. So we can cancel that, go back in. We want to stow the Altera. So there's just a couple more tricks and setups for your SOLIX and Link setup. So if you're networking units, in this case we've got twin SOLIXes, we've got a 15 on the console and a 12 up the front, and we're sharing one transducer. So I'll just go through the setup part of that. So if we push the menu button twice, we go to sonar source. You can see here we've got the SOLIX 15 SI ticked. When it still recognises that it's Ethernet networked, and you can see the network come up, it doesn't necessarily mean your sonar source has been ticked. So you've got to make sure that that button there is illuminated, and you've got to go through each one and make sure. So SOLIX 15 SI, we want the 2D sonar to come from the 15 SI, we want the down imaging to come from the 15 SI, we want the side imaging to come from the 15 SI, and 360 imaging obviously will come from the 360 imaging transducer. So just make sure, even if that switch is on there, just make sure you've also got the the little dot lit up as well. You can drill in, and the auto configure should be on, so you know you're getting it's figuring it out for you. But yeah, just one thing, if you have set up the network and it's recognized the network but you're not getting any information, go to sonar source and just check that the little box is lit up, the little circle's lit up on each of those, and then obviously for your 360 that one's lit up. So fairly simple how to set up your network.